So, this teenage girl wakes up one morning, looks out her window, sees a bunch of elementary school kids walking into school, and decides to use them for target practice. Not because she was bullied by them, not because she had a vendetta against the school, but, and I kid you not, because she was bored. She literally told a reporter while the bodies were still warm on the pavement that she did it because I don't like Mondays. She said it livened up the day. This is 1979. This is 16-year-old Brenda Ann Spencer, and this is the moment that arguably started the modern era of school shootings in America. You are about to hear a story that is so senseless, so cold-blooded, and so avoidable that it's going to make you want to punch a wall. Boom, let's get into it. We need to set the scene because context is everything, and frankly, the context here is terrifying. It's January 29th, 1979. We are in San Diego, California, specifically the San Carlos neighborhood. This is a quiet, sunny, suburban place. This is the kind of neighborhood where people leave their doors unlocked, where kids ride bikes until the streetlights come on, where nothing bad ever happens. It's Monday morning. It's crisp. Families are waking up, making coffee, getting the kids ready for school. Across the street from Brenda's house sits Cleveland Elementary School. Now, imagine being a parent in 1979. You aren't worried about active shooters. That term doesn't even really exist in the public consciousness yet. Columbine is 20 years away. Sandy Hook is decades away. You send your kid to school thinking the biggest danger they face is maybe a scraped knee at recess or a tough math test. You have zero fear that someone is going to open fire on them from a house across the street. But inside that house across the street, things are different. Brenda Ann Spencer is living in a world that is very far removed from the Brady Bunch lifestyle of her neighbors. Brenda is 16. She's small, she's skinny, she's got long red hair and glasses. She looks like your typical, slightly awkward teenager. But inside, Brenda is cooking. Let's talk about Brenda for a second, because you have to understand who is pulling the trigger to understand why this happened. Brenda was known as the weird kid, and I don't mean dyes her hair blue and listens to punk rock weird. I mean shoots birds with BB guns and sets things on fire weird. She was a loner. She didn't really have friends. Teachers described her as introverted and hostile. She would sometimes fall asleep in class. She was clearly dealing with some heavy stuff at home. And speaking of home, let's talk about her living situation, because this is where the adults failing children theme of this video really kicks into high gear. Brenda lived with her father, Wallace Spencer. They lived in absolute squalor. We're talking mattress on the floor, empty alcohol bottles everywhere, just a grim, depressing environment. Her parents were divorced, and by all accounts, Brenda was growing up with zero supervision and zero emotional support. But here is the kicker. Here is the detail that makes everyone who hears this story go, wait, what? Brenda had shown signs of violence for years. She had been arrested for burglary. She had shot out the windows of the school with a BB gun prior to this. She had told school counselors that she wanted to blow her brains out. She was waving red flags so big you could see them from space. So Christmas comes around in 1978, just a few weeks before the shooting. Brenda, a depressed, suicidal, violent teenager who has expressed an interest in guns, asks her dad for a radio. That's it. She wants a radio, a normal gift for a 16-year-old girl. And what does her father, Wallace Spencer, buy her? Does he buy her the radio? No. Does he get her some clothes? No. Does he get her a therapy session? God, I wish. He buys her a Ruger 10/22 semi-automatic 22 caliber rifle with a telescopic sight and 500 rounds of ammunition. Let that sink in for a second. Your mentally unstable daughter with a history of violence and shooting at the school across the street asks for a radio, and you give her a sniper rifle. Tell me in the comments, is this the worst parenting decision in the history of mankind, or am I missing something? Because to me, this looks like handing a match to an arsonist and pointing them toward a gas station. Brenda later said, "I asked for a radio and he bought me a gun." She felt like he wanted her to kill herself. She felt like he was handing her the exit strategy. But Brenda didn't turn the gun on herself. She turned it on the world. Fast forward to that Monday morning, January 29th, 8:30 a.m. The principal of Cleveland Elementary is a guy named Burton Wragg. By all accounts, Burton Wragg is an absolute legend. He's 53 years old, loves his job, loves the kids. He's standing out there, getting ready for the day. The custodian is a guy named Mike Suchar, 56 years old. Another solid dude just doing his job. Children are lining up outside the school gate. They're waiting for the bell to ring. They're talking about their weekends, trading lunch snacks, doing kid stuff. Across the street, Brenda Ann Spencer is sitting in her bedroom. Her window faces the school entrance. She loads the Ruger 1022. She positions herself at the window. She looks through the telescopic sight, and she starts firing. Pop, pop, pop. At first, nobody knows what's happening. A .22 caliber rifle doesn't sound like a cannon. It makes a sharp cracking noise. People probably thought it was firecrackers or a car backfiring. But then, kids start falling. Can you imagine the confusion? You're 8 or 9 years old, you're standing in line, and suddenly the kid next to you drops to the ground screaming. You look down and there's blood. The panic that must have set in at that moment is indescribable. Principal Burton Wragg hears the noise. He sees the kids screaming, and this man, this absolute hero, doesn't hesitate. He doesn't run for cover. He doesn't call 911 and hide under his desk. He runs towards the kids. He runs straight into the line of fire to try and help them. Brenda tracks him with the scope. She pulls the trigger. Burton Wragg takes a bullet to the chest. He dies trying to save those kids. Mike Suchar, the custodian, sees the principal go down. He sees the kids screaming, and just like Wragg, Mike Suchar is made of different stuff than the rest of us. He runs out there. He grabs a blanket or a jacket, trying to cover Wragg, trying to shield the students. Brenda shoots him too. Mike Suchar dies on the pavement. 2 good men, gone in seconds, because a bored teenager across the street had a new toy and a bad attitude. The firing continues. Brenda is just picking people off. She hits 8 children, 8, including a 9-year-old boy named Cam Miller, who was hit in the chest but miraculously survived because the bullet just missed his heart. A police officer named Robert Robb arrives on the scene. He's one of the first responders, and before he can even figure out where the shots are coming from, Brenda shoots him in the neck. It is absolute chaos. Teachers are grabbing kids, dragging them inside classrooms, locking doors, diving under desks. Parents who had just dropped their kids off are screaming, trying to get back to the school. The street is a war zone, and nobody can figure out where the shots are coming from because Brenda is hiding inside a house, firing through a closed window, or just cracking it open enough to stick the barrel out. Eventually, the police figure it out. They see the flashes. They realize the sniper is in the house directly across the street. They set up a perimeter. They bring in the SWAT team. They surround the Spencer home. But Brenda, she's not done. She doesn't come out. She barricades herself in the house. She's got plenty of ammo. She's got her dad's alcohol. And she settles in for a standoff. This is where the story goes from tragic tragedy to bizarre media spectacle. See, while the police are surrounding the house and while paramedics are trying to get to the wounded without getting shot themselves, they actually had to drive a garbage truck between the house and the school to create a shield so they could drag the bodies away. How insane is that? A reporter starts calling phone numbers in the neighborhood. This reporter is Gus Garcia from the San Diego Tribune. He's trying to get information. He's calling houses near the school to see if anyone sees anything. And who picks up the phone at one of the numbers he calls? Brenda Ann Spencer.
Yeah, who's this? Gus realizes he's on the phone with the shooter. Can you imagine that realization? You're a reporter, you think you're calling a witness, and suddenly you're talking to the person holding the smoking gun. He asks her, "Is everyone okay?" And Brenda, calm as a cucumber, basically tells him, "I shot them." Gus, trying to keep his composure, asks the question that everyone in the world wants to know. He asks, why? Why did you do this? And this is where she drops the line that will follow her for the rest of her life, the line that defined a generation's fear of inexplicable violence. She says, I just did it for the fun of it. I don't like Mondays. This livens up the day. I have to go now. I shot a pig, police officer, and I want to shoot more. I don't like Mondays. Not I was abused, not they bullied me, not the voices in my head told me to. I don't like Mondays. It's so banal, it's so trivial. It's the kind of thing you say when you don't want to go to work, not when you've just murdered 2 people and shot 8 kids. It reduced human life to a cure for boredom. It was nihilism at its absolute peak. She stays on the phone with reporters for a while. She talks to them while the cops are outside with bullhorns. She tells them she's stoned and that she's having fun. At one point, she says she sees the SWAT team and thinks they look like toy soldiers, and she wants to shoot them too. The standoff lasts for nearly 7 hours. 7 hours of terror for that neighborhood. 7 hours of Brenda sitting in that house, drinking, holding her rifle, while the parents of the kids she shot are at the hospital praying their kids don't die. Negotiators are trying to talk her out. They cut the power, they cut the water, they're trying to make her uncomfortable, but Brenda is stubborn. Do you know what finally gets her to come out? What is the bargaining chip that ends the Cleveland elementary school shooting? She gets hungry. She tells the negotiators she'll surrender if they bring her a Burger King meal, specifically a Whopper. I swear you cannot make this stuff up. She murders 2 heroes, wounds 9 others, terrorizes a city, and her demand is a fast food burger. The police obviously are like, if a burger gets her out without anyone else dying, get her the damn burger. So they promise her the food, she puts down the rifle, she walks out of the house. And when she walks out, she doesn't look like a monster. She looks like a tiny, frail 16-year-old girl. She's staring at the ground. She looks normal. And that makes it even scarier. If she looked like a demon, we could understand it. But she looks like the girl who sits behind you in algebra class. Now, real quick, hit subscribe because we are about to dive into the trial and the messed up aftermath. And trust me, you're gonna want to stick around for the twist regarding her father. So, Brenda is arrested. They find the gun, they find the empty ammo boxes, they find empty beer and whiskey bottles scattered around the house. It's a scene of neglect and chaos. Because she's 16, there's a debate. Do we try her as a juvenile or an adult? The crime is so heinous, the public outcry is so massive that the prosecutors push hard for adult charges, and they get them. Brenda Ann Spencer is going to face the music as an adult. She is charged with 2 counts of murder and assault with a deadly weapon. Now, usually, this is where we get a big dramatic trial. We get lawyers yelling, we get surprise witnesses, we get the whole law and order circus. But in this case, it didn't really happen that way. Brenda pleaded guilty. Her lawyers knew there was no getting out of this. She was caught red-handed. She confessed on the phone to reporters. The gun was hers. She was the only one in the house. The insanity defense was tricky because she seemed so calm and rational during the event. So, on April 4th, 1980, a year after the shooting, she is sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. She arrives at the California Institution for Women. And that should be the end of the story, right? Bad girl does bad thing, goes to jail forever. The end. But it's never that simple. First off, let's talk about the cultural impact. A few months after the shooting, a band called the Boomtown Rats, led by Bob Geldof, the guy who later organized Live Aid, hears about the story. Geldof is doing a radio interview in Atlanta, and the news comes over the telex machine. He sees the quote, "I don't like Mondays." He thinks it's the most chilling thing he's ever heard. He writes a song about it. The song is called, fittingly, "I Don't Like Mondays." Now, you've probably heard this song. It's catchy, it's got that piano intro, it sounds like an upbeat new wave pop song. But the lyrics? The lyrics are literally about Brenda.
The silicon chip inside her head gets switched to overload, and nobody's going to school today. She's going to make them stay home. The song becomes a massive hit in the UK. It goes to #1. In the US, it's a bit more controversial because, it's about a school shooting that just happened. Parents in San Diego tried to get it banned, but the song immortalized Brenda. It turned her into a pop culture figure. It gave her exactly what many shooters want: fame, infamy. Brenda actually heard the song in prison. She reportedly said she was proud of it. She liked the attention, which just confirms that her boredom excuse was probably masking a deep narcissistic need to be seen, to be acknowledged, even if it was for being a monster. But as the years go by in prison, Brenda's story starts to change. When she's up for parole, and she has been up for parole multiple times, she starts dropping bombshells about her home life. She starts trying to explain why she did it, and this is where things get murky and incredibly dark. She claims that her father, Wallace, was a monster. She alleges that he beat her. She alleges that he sexually abused her. She claims that the environment in that house was a living hell. She says that on the morning of the shooting, she was hungover, maybe still drunk, and arguably hallucinating. She also claims, and this is a big one, that she had a brain injury. She says she had an accident on her bicycle years prior that caused temporal lobe damage. She argues that this damage, combined with drug use, she claims she was on PCP and marijuana, though tests at the time didn't find PCP, caused her to snap. But the biggest claim she makes involves the shooting itself. In later parole hearings, she tries to say that she didn't actually buy into the whole "I don't like Mondays" thing. She claims she was just saying whatever came to her head. Then she throws her dad under the bus in a way that makes you wonder. She claims that her father had manipulated her. She claims that the shooting was almost his idea, or that he had groomed her for violence. Remember, this is the guy who bought a depressed, suicidal girl a sniper rifle for Christmas. So is it plausible that he was a bad guy? Absolutely. Is it plausible that he abused her? Sadly, yes. Does it excuse walking to the window and shooting innocent children and killing 2 heroes? Absolutely not. The parole board has never bought her new narrative. Every time she comes up for parole, 1993, 2001, 2005, 2009, 2022, they look at the facts. They look at the callousness of the crime. They look at the fact that she laughed about it. They look at the "I don't like Mondays" quote, and they deny her. In one hearing, she claimed she was actually trying to shoot the police to get them to kill her, suicide by cop. But the board pointed out, "Brenda, you shot kids. You shot the principal. You didn't shoot at cops until later. You targeted the innocent first." Her most recent parole hearing was in 2022. She's in her 60s now. She's still in prison, and she was denied again. She won't be eligible again for years. But let's step back and look at the bigger picture here. Why does this story matter so much? Why are we talking about a shooting from 1979? Because Brenda Ann Spencer was the prototype. Before Brenda, schools were sanctuaries. Sure, there had been isolated incidents of violence, but the idea of a school shooter, a student targeting other students en masse, wasn't a script that existed in our culture. Brenda wrote that script. She showed that a school is a soft target. She showed that you could get worldwide attention by attacking the most vulnerable members of society. She showed that you didn't need a political motive or a terrorist organization behind you. You just needed a rifle and a bad attitude. And look at the pattern she set. The loner status, the history of red flags ignored by adults, the access to firearms in the home, the desire for notoriety. It's the same checklist we see in Columbine, in Parkland, in Uvalde. It forces us to ask the uncomfortable question, if someone had intervened with Brenda in 1978, would the history of American school shootings be different? If her dad had bought her that radio instead of the gun? If social services had seen the squalor they were living in? If the school had done more when she expressed suicidal thoughts? What would you do? If you were a neighbor and you saw a kid shooting BB guns at the school windows, would you call the cops or would you mind your own business? If you were a teacher and a student fell asleep in class every day and looked disheveled, would you call CPS? It's easy to say yes now, but in 1979, people didn't want to get involved. And that reluctance to get involved, that it's not my business attitude, is exactly the crack that Brenda Ann Spencer slipped through. There is also the tragedy of the victims that often gets overshadowed by the "I don't like Mondays" legend. Burton Wragg, we need to say his name again. This man ran toward gunfire. He had a family, he had a life. He gave it all up in a split second to save children that weren't even his. He is the definition of a hero. Mike Suchar, the custodian, he didn't have to go out there. He could have hid in the broom closet. He went out to help his friend and save those kids. Another hero. And the survivors, the kids who were shot, they're adults now. They're in their 50s. They have lived their entire lives with the physical and mental scars of that day. Cam Miller, the boy shot in the chest, has spoken about the trauma. He has to live with the fact that he almost died waiting for the school bell to ring. We give so much attention to the shooters. We give them documentaries, we analyze their manifestos, we listen to songs about them, but the people who really deserve the airtime are the ones who stood up to them and the ones who survived them. Brenda Ann Spencer is currently residing at the California Institution for Women in Chino. She is a gray-haired woman now. The Boomtown Rats song is still played on classic rock radio, and every time a breaking news alert flashes across our phones about another school shooting, a little piece of that legacy traces back to that bedroom window in San Diego. It's a stark reminder that evil doesn't always look like a movie villain. Sometimes it looks like a bored teenager in glasses. Sometimes it comes from a place of neglect and stupidity. And sometimes the only reason given for destroying a dozen lives is that someone just didn't like the day of the week. So, tell me in the comments, is Brenda Ann Spencer a product of a failed system and a monstrous father? Or is she just pure evil who deserves to rot? Does the abuse excuse the violence? Or is that just a convenient story for the parole board? I want to know what you think. And if you liked this deep dive into one of the most disturbing cases in history, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We have way more insane stories coming your way. Stories about people who make Brenda look like a choir girl. You don't want to miss it. Stay safe, watch out for red flags, and for the love of anything holy, if your depressed kid asks for a radio, just buy them the frickin' radio.